Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today we are going to do lesson number 18 from your textbooks. The title is In My Day by Russell Baker. Students, this essay is a personal essay. That is, the writer is talking about his mother who is suffering from some mental uh, issue, and that issue is the mental deterioration. She has lost the sense of time, and she would move freely between past and present without realizing what's wrong with her. This essay uh, is a thought-provoking essay in which the writer tries to point out the gap between parents and children. The writer points out that how children and parents they break their relationship, how the parents do not how the children lose interest in the past of their parents, and how parents fail to tell their or to communicate to their children the past of theirs, which is in fact very much related to the children. A child is after all the production, or is after all, and a child after all achieves something in life while being dependent on his parents. But as soon as a child becomes independent, he thinks that he is an individual entity and he has no relation with the past of his parents, which the writer thinks is absurdly wrong. The essay begins with the writer telling you about the fatal disease with which his mother was suffering, and that is, at the age of 80, my mother had her last fall, and after that, her mind wandered freely through time. So this was her problem. This was her last sickness. She could not maintain the barrier between, or she could not distinguish between past and present. So she has lost the control over her mind. How some days she went to weddings and funerals that had taken place half a century earlier. So sometimes she would wander through time and reach in the weddings and funerals which had taken place 50 years earlier. And on some other days, she would preside over family dinners, which were cooked for children who were among whom was the writer as well, who had now become old, with age. But she would be attending or presiding over the dinners which she had cooked for her children when they were younger. So the problem with her was that she was physically in bed, but mentally she would move across time, traveling among the decades with the speed and ease beyond the gift of physical science. Now, the writer has divided the sickness of his mother into two phases. The first phase was the phase in which his mother was still physically fine, but mentally she had started showing signs that she has started moving between past and present. That sometimes she lost. Sometimes she would lose contact with the present and would totally immerse in the past. ठीक है, सो मसला ये है वालदा के साथ राइटर की कि वो माजी के अंदर गुम हो जाती हैं और उनका जो कनेक्शन है हाल के साथ वो ख़त्म हो जाता है. Writer has given the example of this. One day writer visited his mother, who was there at the nursing home, and the question his mother asked Russell made him astonished. He was taken aback by the question of his mother when she asked him, "Where's Russell?" The writer told her that he was Russell. She said no. She instead of saying anything to him, first she told him with a sign with her hand that with her hands that her son was only 2 foot high in height, and then she told him that Russell's only this big, suggesting again that she would not believe him to be so much old. And the writer tells us that on that day she was a young country wife in the backyard with with the view of hazy blue Virginia mountains, and the writer was old enough to be her father. And then another incident has been quoted by the writer over here of his mother's sickness, and that was one day she called him. The writer received a call from from his mother, and what she told him was a question that shook the writer, and this was, "Are you coming to my funeral? Are you coming to my funeral?" Now, this was the question which moved the writer. Are you coming to my funeral? Because today, because his mother was very much alive, she was calling him, and on phone she was asking him this question. Definitely, with old age, she had become senile. So instead of answering to her, he asked the same question. He asked her what was she talking about. She asked him, "What are you talking about?" So, being a son, he was very much concerned. "What are you talking about, for God's sake?" And the reply came to him was, "I am being buried today." Now, the writer thought that it would be fine to call her later, so he told her, "I'll phone you back," and he hung up the phone. And when he called her back, sometimes later, she was all right. That she was all right because that fit was over. And then we are told about the physical appearance of the mother. The writer tells us that his mother had always been a small woman, short, light boned, delicately structured, but now under white hospital sheets. How does she appear now? So she was a small woman, short, light boned, delicately structured. It was what she was physically. But now, as she had become old, she was becoming uh, smaller, and the writer would, when he would visit her, he would thought of a doll with huge, furious eyes. Now, these huge, furious eyes are the reflection of her character as well. The writer says that there had always been a furiousness in her. So there is a furiousness, and so this is her. So over here is the physical appearance of the women, physical appearance of mother. Okay, this is her physical appearance है मदर की इधर बताई हुई, ठीक है ना? And then uh, physical appearance है, there's not much place. So this is physical appearance of the woman. She was small, light boned, and short in structure. And then this is her character. Okay, this is her character. Her character, which was also projected through her eyes. There was fierceness in her. And what fierceness she had, These eyes, they tell him of Uh, it showed in that anger, challenging thrust of chin when she issued an opinion, and great one, she always had been for issuing opinions. I tell people exactly what's on my mind. She had been fond of boosting, whether they like it or not. So she had always, it's not, she had always the habit of telling people what was there on her mind. वो जो सोचती थी वही बताती थी, and whether people and she never took into account whether those words of her were liked by others or not. And the writer tells her that it's not always good policy to tell people exactly what's on your mind. And the writer, as her son, he used to caution her, and he used to tell her if they don't like it, that's too bad. So the writer used to caution her, but she would respond by telling, if they don't like it, that's too bad, because that's the way I am. And so she was, a formidable woman, determined to speak her mind. So she was a furious woman. She was a formidable woman. She was such a kind of a woman who would always speak out her mind without considering the opinion of regarding other people's regarding her words, and she would not care about whether people would like her opinion or not. So she would always speak to her mind, determined to have her way, determined to bend those who opposed her. So she was always determined to have her way, अपनी बात मनवाने में, और दूसरे जो उसको अपोज करते थे उनको उसकी बात मानने के लिए, राजी करने के लिए वो जो थी कोशिश करती थी. She was a she was a courageous woman, you could say. ठीक है? And then next, she had hurled herself at life with, so she was a formidable woman, one character. Then she had hurled herself at life with an energy that made her seem always on the run. This is another characteristic. This was another characteristic of his mother. And what is that? She had a challenging nature. She had this energy to meet her challenges. She was always running. She was always on the run. She ran after chicken, an axe in her hand, determined on beheading that would put a dinner in the pot. She ran when she made the beds, ran when she set, she ran when she set the table. On Thanksgiving, she burned herself badly when running up from the cellar, even with the ceremonial turkey. She tripped on the stairs and tumbled down, ending at the bottom in the debris of giblet, hot gravy, and battered turkey. So for her, life was a combat, a fight, and victory was not always victory was not to the lazy, the timid, the drugstore cowboy, the marsh mouth, afraid to tell people exactly what was on his mind. So for his mother, life was a challenge. Life was a fight, and she fought she fought that fight with a vigor, and she had this determination to tell the truth, to give her response. And the writer has quoted over here all those instances which may give him the feeling that his mother was always on the run. And but now in the present, as his mother has fallen sick, and the running was over. So in the old age, when she reached the old age, the running was over. And the writer, being her son, for him it was difficult to accept this inevitable. So this is what is cycle of life. One is a child, one is a child, then a young person. One is an infant, then a child, then a young person, and then an old man, and then again a second childhood begins. So for the writer, it was not acceptable to accept that his mother was sick in the bed, and as writer tells us that as I sat by her bed, my impulse was to argue her back to reality. Okay, so as a child, he wanted to argue with her mother. Now, most of you, as parents, as children, would have noticed that you always take your parents as being there for you, always as the ones on whom you would depend, as the ones who are full of energy, as the ones who have the power to combat, to fight with life, as the one with whom you would also quarrel and argue. So the same was the condition with the writer. He wanted to argue back with his mother. On my first visit to hospital in Baltimore, she asked who I was. Russell, I said. Russell's way out west. She advised me, no, I am right here. So when she had fallen sick on the first day of the visit of the writer, she told him that Russell had gone west, but but he told him that he was right there. And then she told him, yes, from where I came today. And the writer asked her where. She told him all the way from New Jersey. And the writer then again tried to argue with her. He told her, no, you have been in the hospital for 3 days. I insisted just like a child. So it went until our doctor came by to give one of those oral quizzes that medical men apply in such cases. So the doctor came over there. This argument was stopped when the doctor came over there to give her the dosage. And we are told that this for the first day when the writer visited his mother, she had been there in the hospital for the last 3 days, and the writer had been the mother was there in a hospital in Baltimore. Students, this is all for today. Tomorrow, in the next class, we are going to read the rest of the lesson. And I know up to now you have understood the main idea of the story, and it is an interesting. Again, I tell you, this is a thought-provoking essay. At the end of this essay, I would be asking you, what have you learned from this essay, and what is the philosophy of a writer about our attitude towards life. So thank you very much for today. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow in